There we go.
Hey, greetings.
Well, good evening, everybody, and shout out to all of our members, family of Highland Congregational Church, and friends. I have good news to bring you tonight. We have our new interim pastor with us tonight and his lovely wife, and we're going to have a little fireside chat, except we're not in the fireside room tonight because that room was occupied. So here we are in the sanctuary. I'm Emil Marzullo. I'm the moderator here at the church. Most of you know who I am. And to my left is Bill Maury-Holmes. He is our new pastor, and his wife, Marybeth. They are locals. They have lived in the Redlands area for a number of years, and we're going to be hearing a little bit about them. And Bill, you started as a Maury, and now you have a Maury-Holmes. How did that happen?
I started as the Holmes. She started as the Maury. Okay. So when we got married, we combined the two. And people have often asked what the order was. Is she more important, and should she win the arm wrestling? And that was not the case. We checked that Maury-Holmes sounded better than Holmes-Maury. That was the entirety of it.
Exactly. So. It's like a rock star when they changed their name. They didn't want to be what their natural name was. Well, that's great. That is great. Tell us a little bit about, I know that you live in Redlands, and you have been a member at the Redlands HCC Church, but your background goes back much farther than that in the ministry. Why don't you give us a few minutes about maybe your history, what brought you to the ministry, some of the places you've been, even some of the places you've lived. I know you've been in some interesting places.
Sure. I grew up in La Cañada, California, and actually was, as a child, raised in the Church Lighted Window, which is La Cañada Congregational Church, UCC now. And that experience wasn't a negative one in many regards, but it wasn't a particularly profound one for me either. But it certainly didn't create a sense of bad vibes towards the brand as it is. And my parents are still members of that congregation, as they have been for nearing 50 years. But we both went to Occidental College as undergrads and met there through a campus fellowship, InterVarsity Christian Fellowship, which was very vital for both of us in our own regards.
So was that an accidental meeting at Occidental?
Well played, yes. There's all sorts of good stories to talk about Occidental. What do you call a good student at Occidental College?
What?
An oxymoron.
Oh, okay.
Too easy a setup for that.
Yeah.
So we did meet in the campus ministry there. We were love at several thousandth sight. It wasn't an immediate thing for us. Actually, we became a couple after we had graduated, and we were both involved working with campus ministry at that point, which is something that I did for subsequent 10 years.
And how many years have you been married now?
28 in December.
28, and you have children?
We have 3 children. Samuel is 23, lives in Los Angeles. Joel is 21, and he is experiencing the joy of being a college student in the age of COVID. So he is a junior at Davidson College outside of Charlotte in North Carolina, and is home with mom and dad right now. Congratulations, kid.
Yeah.
And Claire, our youngest, is 19 and also lives in Redlands.
Well, how about extended family animals, horses, dogs, cats?
We're very simple. We have one. His name is Bumper, and those of you who come and visit will at some point probably meet him. He is a Shih Tzu Maltese rescue, local. He was rescued from a shelter in Devore, and his primary goals in life are to eat and sleep, both of which he does quite well.
Sounds like a good job.
He has a good job. So he's not large, but he is sweet, and he likes belly rubs.
So you went to Occidental College, and you met in the ministry there, and but you didn't initially start out to go into pastoral work or ministry right out of Occidental, did you?
No, I wasn't that intentional professionally. I did continue to do campus ministry the first year as sort of a volunteer, and then that shifted into a professional work in a couple of years. I actually worked for a sculptor right out of college because I got the job because I could lift big pieces of metal, so all that for qualifications. And I wasn't really that intentional about my career path per se. I just kept doing what I thought was working in ministry, and it parlayed itself into a campus ministry decade, which parlayed itself into becoming a local church pastor with the additional education.
Well, that's great. Now, Marybeth, you were in the medical field, but I understand you're not in the giving the medicine side of it, but you're in the administration side of it.
Right. So, whoopsie, I'm going to go ahead and take this off when I'm talking. Yes, I am a nurse, a registered nurse by training, and I worked for 16 years in a neonatal intensive care unit. before I went back and got some additional schooling and moved into management. And so I currently work in management over at Riverside County's hospital, which is called Riverside University Health System.
Right. Well, it's a challenging time in medicine, no matter where you are, whether you're on the front lines or in the back office. It's kudos to you and all the people that work with you for what you do. It's we're headed into I don't know if this is called phase 2 or phase 3, but whatever phase it is, we're in it, and hopefully vaccinations are right around the corner, and we'll be talking about this like it was the past in 6 or 7 months. So
We
should all hope.
We should all hope
Yes.
and pray, indeed.
So at Redlands, you were doing campus ministry, and what did that involve?
We moved to Redlands in 1990 to start a Christian fellowship at the University of Redlands. And it's really, frankly, in many ways, it's a church.
Yes.
It's a church run by young people who don't know a lot, but it was a church nonetheless. And it was targeted at college students, undergraduates in specific. So we're doing the same kinds of things that would be the basic role of any church, which is worship services, prayer meetings, Bible studies, raising up leaders to experiment with their own gifts and forms of service. And so I was doing that from pretty much 2 years after I graduated from college myself, and it was a wonderful decade. So we did that, had a great run at the University of Redlands. I fell in love with the area, which was a very pleasant side benefit that I hadn't counted upon. And we stuck, and it wound up being a relationship that changed even some years later when, with a few more things under my belt, I was asked to come back and serve as a professor, which I did for the last almost 13 years, and that was a treat as well.
Well, as you know, in our area, this 50 years ago, we would have been surrounded by citrus groves. This whole East Valley was a citrus agricultural area, and Highland originally was a little town called Messina, just a few blocks from here. Yep. This church was actually 3 blocks south, and it wasn't moved. It was essentially they outgrew it, and they rebuilt this facility here in 1963. And so we were I believe the first church in Highland, and certainly we're not the only one anymore, but there's a certain tradition and a feel of historical significance about this building. Even though it isn't a 200-year-old New England church, it has the feel and the warmth. When you first came here, what kind of feeling did you have when you stepped in on our premises?
Well, the premises are one thing, and obviously this sanctuary is magnificent. It really is a classic New England style sanctuary. But I had been tipped off a little bit by Pastor Louis Leon, who I got to know briefly prior to his retirement, that this was a congregation that was very warm and caring, that people did really enjoy one another and cared for one another well. And from the moment I was interviewed by the search committee through the present, now that it's here and getting to know people fast and furiously, I have found that to be true. So it's a very interesting mix of a congregation that is 1884, is one of the oldest congregations in the entirety of the East Valley, quite much more so than most of even the historic churches in Redlands. To find that kind of juxtaposition of a traditional physical plant and quite a history with a really warm and current congregation that loves one another. Right. And so that was probably what spoke to me as much as anything. And I think at this point I'll be associating the physical plant with actually the people who are doing things here.
You know, our congregation, I've been a member for over 35 years.
Young gun here.
Even in that period of time, we've changed dramatically as the demographics of our region have changed, as young families have grown up and moved on to other places. We are decidedly an older congregation as we stand today, but we talked in some length, both in your interview and personally, about trying to bring out I don't want to call it a new vibe, but I talk maybe something slightly different than we've done in the past, and maybe doing some outreach in some ways that we haven't tried in the past to bring in younger families. When I say younger families, I'm not talking about teenagers. I'm younger here as 40 or 50-year-olds. So they're already in the grandparent stage. So what kind of ideas do you have that we might look forward to?
I think we'll be building off of what is good about the congregation. I think that a lot of churches get stuck in the idea that we need to grow younger. That's an abstract idea. Everybody does. You'll never find a church profile that won't say that. But the question is, what are we building upon? And the fact that people like each other here and love each other and want to eat together and be together is really where you build from. It's not so much that there's a silver bullet out there. So you really have to recognize that what is strong and solid about this congregation is where we start. And the reality is that there's plenty of families who are younger folks of all different ages and generations who need that. They need to connect, they need to be part of things. So the basic premise that this can be done, become a multi-generational church again in ways, is very realistic. How to do that technically will be in the realm of experimentation. Highland is in some ways a bedroom community for a lot of families who want in on the school district and who would like the kind of lifestyle, and it's a little more affordable than parts of Orange County and LA. So to recognize that there are people here, how do we find them? Probably the best way we go about that for starters is to work with a few younger adults we have in the congregation, first of all, and say, hey, what are your friends doing? Do they have a church home? What are their needs? What would be things that they might find appealing? So we've talked about different, this is a church that values music, to do some experimenting with music perhaps over time, additional experimenting, to look at the possibilities of small groups. Right now, this is all anybody has because we're not meeting in person. Are there things we can start online, which is much more of the lingua franca for a lot of younger people anyway? At 55, I know some things about how to work with technology. My kids speak digital.
Yes.
So to try to see if there's ways in which we can connect with people in terms of group activities online now that would build into things in person later.
Right. Well, this last year, when we started into the COVID virus era, we thought we were going to be one and done in about 2.5 months. Yeah. And when we were essentially forced to close down by government edict, we thought, all right, May, June, and then May and June came by, and we were in July and August and then September, and here we are just a few days before Thanksgiving.
Sure.
With the thought that we may be, in this for several more months. What kinds of things do we need to do, like in your opinion? And Marybeth, you can chime in as well with our protocols and so forth that we need to do. We really want to get back together, but we also know that may not be realistic. The congregation itself has a desire to want to be together. How are some of the things that maybe we haven't tried, on the potential list of ways that we can do that?
I think that we have initially some things we can do to expand our online offerings. So we'll be certainly having a sermon every week that will be posted on YouTube at Highland Congregational Church, California. That will be that, and we will look to then build for that service. It wouldn't be just the sermon, but that we could add musical elements, and in many ways replicate the kind of Sunday morning experience available online, posted on Facebook. That, of course, is still not in person, and while that can be beneficial, it does not meet the whole need. But there are some other things we can also do online. We can work on Bible studies, group Bible studies that would be done through Zoom and other platforms. Those are actually easier than you would think. It's pretty simple to train people. If you've got a phone, you're good to go. And we can do that. So we can work on building the connections that are not in person, which doesn't answer the deeper question, but is in fact part of what we can do. Prayer groups can be meeting online. Some of the work of the church can be done, counsel and other things. Then there's the question of how do we begin to meet responsibly in groups. And right now, when we're at maybe as bad a place as we've ever been with COVID, right now at this point of November, heading into the holidays, we have to be very smart about that, because I think the thou shalt not kill notion is a pretty good one. It's not going the right direction. Members of the congregation have been impacted by COVID personally. We certainly are aware that this is something that disproportionately affects older members. So we want to be smart about that. However, there are things that we can do here in Southern California that a lot of the rest of the country don't have the options for, because our weather is great. We can do some things outside with small groups, socially distanced, physically distanced a little bit, masking. We can do some of that. So there is availability to do walking groups, walking prayer groups. And as we see where we go with this, there will be opportunities perhaps to even do small groupings outside for forms of worship. We have to watch all this and see it is moving. It's not static. But I think that there are different things we can do that will give people more of the personal contact that we all cherish so much.
Well, I know that everybody is going to be very anxious to meet you, either on the phone or in person. You'll be having office hours.
I will.
And why don't you tell our congregation and friends how they can reach you by phone or
Certainly.
make an appointment to see you?
So you can reach me by phone, calling the office phone. That would be the great place. And we now have my cell phone is on all the newsletters and print material. So I'm very much available for people to meet by phone. We can do Zoom meetings. We can do FaceTime. We can make it a little better. You can see what a goofball I look like if you want that way. Phones may not be my best side as it would be. So we have that option very available, and there'll be a lot of phone calling. I'm going to be initiating a lot of phone calling to connect with members of the congregation, even as I know that there are phone trees within the congregation. People are looking out for each other. But then I will be doing office hours Monday and Thursday for starters, from 9-ish till 3-ish. There'll be a little flexibility on either side of that. And people can come and meet with me individually. Again, we have a lovely campus here, so it's really easy to sit outside. The doors of my office will be open almost all the time because the weather doesn't happen that often. We're supposed to have a mild winter, and we can meet in person. I'd be glad to do that with you as well.
All right. Well, Marybeth, I really want to thank you for coming out and being a part of our family. We hope to see you. We don't expect you're going to be here every Sunday when we get back together again, but we would love to see you on a regular basis, and we'll let you be the critique for Bill's weekly message.
She's good at that.
Yeah. And your message will be posted on our new website, which is highlandcongregationalchurch.com. Is that the...
We might be .com, we might be .org. We'll have to see what domain will serve us best. And so that's a work in progress. We're hoping to get that up and running quickly. You can also subscribe, as much as I hate to promote this, but you can look at the Facebook page for Highland Congregational Church, Highland, California. There's a Highland, Illinois church as well. So
Yes.
That'll be our Facebook site, and I'm going to continue to indulge my interest as an amateur photographer and take pictures and put them up there from time to time. That will also have access to the sermons and other things that we record.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you both for coming today, and we hope that you've learned a little bit about our new pastor, and we welcome you to get in touch with him whenever you'd like, and by all means, stay safe and have a very happy Thanksgiving with hopefully some of your family. Maybe you can't have everyone together, but certainly with some of them. And we hope to see you soon. And we are working on something for Christmas Eve. We will do something. It may not be the traditional, but we'll have something there for you.
Indeed.
With that, goodbye and see you soon.
Blessings. Take care.
God bless.
All right. Now let's hope for the